My background is in enterprise sourcing. So me and my team have backgrounds from the likes of McKinsey, Accenture, PwC, etc. So we're coming at this from the perspective of what is the opportunities for large organizations and large enterprises to embrace these crowdsourcing models in provocative and disruptive ways. So the best ideas, if you're smart enough or lucky enough to find them, probably come from unexpected sources. Exceptional knowledge exists within the enterprise, but it's buried. If you rely on the deployment of traditional management systems, you'll never identify it, you certainly won't be able to harness it, and you won't be able to deploy it. There's an expert somewhere for everything, but the chances are if you continue to look in the same places, you'll never find them. Latent capacity exists within the enterprise, but it's untapped. Abundant capacity exists within the globally connected digital workforce, but new systems and processes are required to connect and deploy it. Welcome to Crowdsourcing. So, a couple of minutes on our goals and missions. So, we have the property Crowdsourcing.org. We also have an advisory and research firm called Mass Solution, and the two work very closely together. Our investment within the industry is to provide a platform for providers to reach their audience and to explain their models, and to provide resources and support for academics and researchers who are looking at the industry and trying to understand the model and its potential, to publish the most insightful content on the subject of crowdsourcing and crowdfunding models, and then to help enterprise buyers as they start to explore and navigate this ecosystem. And in their efforts to evaluate and deploy crowdsourcing solutions and find providers. We launched our first major research initiative about 4 weeks ago. So before the end of the year, we'll be reporting on the size and the shape of the industry. We've had a tremendous response. Around 25 significant companies have provided their data so far. So if you haven't participated in that survey, you'll find the banner on our homepage. We'll be closing that survey in a couple of weeks before we launch a second survey. That first survey is focused on the cloud labour market, so the deployment of people in a typical on-demand model. Okay. So the subject of today's discussion is, I'm going to quite quickly get to the subject of enterprise crowdsourcing. So, you know, obviously we're quite well known for our infographic, but that infographic is sort of our view of crowdsourcing for everyone. A lot of the work that we've been doing behind the scenes over the last 6 months, and a lot of the work that you'll see coming, being published shortly, is around how do large organisations and enterprises in particular look at crowdsourcing, how do they define it? Okay, so part of the work that we've done is we did a piece of research looking at 2,500 use cases, and we've organised those use cases into a taxonomy which I'm going to share with you today. Now, the last 20 years I've spent, as I said, working in the sourcing area, so I'm going to talk about the Indian outsourcing marketplace. Okay, and you're thinking, well, why am I going to talk about the Indian outsourcing marketplace in the context of crowdsourcing? The reason I'm going to do that is I think we can learn a lot from the Indians, and a lot of today's discussion and today's meeting is around where are we, 1 or 2 years into this? What does the trajectory look like? And what opportunities are there to look at previous markets as they've developed, to draw parallels and similarities regarding where we are today. I'm going to share some perspectives on what I think we're doing wrong, or maybe more where we are relative to the maturity of this market and how it needs to change. So let's look at the Indian outsourcing market. Okay, the way that the Indians conquered outsourcing was very interesting. First of all, they weren't considered competition in the early days for the large global providers of services. Okay, they maybe through no choice adopted a very much of a sort of stealth strategy. They came in, and I'm talking about the early 1990s now. They came in, they won very small pieces of business. They were pretty insignificant. They were winning contracts of $1 million, $2 million. They were very much off radar. Over time, those contracts they aggregated, okay, and continue to draw the parallels with where we are in terms of the type of work that we're securing from a crowdsourcing point of view today. When those contracts came up for renewal, because of the efficient performance and delivery of services, the extensions started becoming much larger than the original contracts in the first instance. But it was some time, when a $1 million deal became a $5 million deal, became a $25 million deal, before they actually became recognised in terms of the prevalence and the relevance. And who would have thought in 1990 that by 2012 the Indian outsourcing market would be worth $40 billion a year? So the first thing that we have to thank the Indians for is the globalization of the workforce and the globalization of services. And I remember advising big Fortune 1000 companies back in the 90s and through the 90s. And I remember the pain that organizations were going through regarding deploying work outside traditional boundaries. How is that going to be governed? How do you ensure security and how do you ensure security? How do you ensure privacy? What are the systems and things that are necessary in order for that to happen?